Everybody's always trying to sort of fit themselves into this concept of like finding a niche.
Yeah.
And I like to reverse that around. Instead of finding the niche, become the niche. And you're not trying to resonate with everybody. You're trying to target the people that you really want to make the most impact on. And they don't buy your product per se. Your product should be good, but people buy the person behind the product. What's the story behind the product? Always look at how can I add value to the marketplace? How can I add value to my potential buyer? And be able to address that at every point on the customer journey.
Hey, Deevo, welcome to Business Club.
Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, pleasure is mine, and what an honor to have you here. And I've heard a lot of stories about you. We met a few times, and this is a great opportunity to know you better.
I appreciate the opportunity to share it with your audience, so thank you.
Great. So what we do here is, this is a small business spotlight. We're starting a series called Small Business Spotlight. And in this spotlight, what we do is we look at your business, your personal background, understand a lot about you and your business, and see what you can tell to the audience so that they can pick up something from you and maybe craft a career path similar to you. The whole idea is to inspire people who are trying to get into the same field as you.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I'll
Cool.
try to drop some knowledge if I can.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your personal background, where do you grow up, where do you go to college, and what do you do today, and things like that. So.
Yeah, so I grew up on the West Coast between Colorado and California, and I am one of 12 siblings, actually.
Wow.
I have 11 brothers and sisters, and I only say that just because I think in large part that's sort of construct sort of the trajectory of my life and sort of my personality and all those sorts of things, and we don't need to unpack all that, but
You feel free to.
there's a lot of deep psychology there. I went to college in Connecticut at Trinity College. I went there because my brother was in law school at the time. It actually wasn't my first choice, but for whatever reason, my dad wanted me to go to school there and sort of threatened me with all sorts of conditional things like you're going here and that's all there was to it. I think he wanted my brother to sort of have some oversight on me, which didn't really happen because I never saw him. I graduated with a degree in psychology and film studies.
Wow. Okay.
Did a lot of television production. It was sort of my first exposure in sort of the media world. I actually launched the first ever Trinity television station when I was in college. And so that was my first exposure. I graduated college, and like every other schlep American, I went straight into the American dream and got a corporate job because they offered me a lot of money, and I was really poor. I'd never actually seen this kind of money before. I was like, wow, I could actually do that doing this. I was like, okay, cool. So I did not follow some of my passions, which is a larger story that we can touch on, which sort of has kind of led me to my inspiration today. And we can go back into that if you like. But I took a job for money. I worked in 15 years in the corporate world.
Who did you work with?
I worked with a company at the time was Greenpoint Bank. So they were based out of New York City. I did an executive management program with them. So I was actually one of two people for the 1998 year or 1997 year that was hired into this program.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it was really cool. The other girl was from South Korea. And the two of us were put into this 2-year program where we were exposed to all aspects of the business. So we were transferred around to different centers and basically learned the entire operations of the business. And then we graduated into management positions or leadership positions. So after my graduation, they sent me back to San Diego with one of my bosses because they bought a division out there. And basically the division was in manufactured housing and financing and servicing of those loan portfolios. And it's big money. Manufactured housing is really big money for the banks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. And so my job at that point was to basically modernize the office. They were working on old ledger pads and paper and pen, and they had sales reps and collection reps in all 50 states, just basically going door to door, collecting money and servicing these loan portfolios.
Wow.
And so they challenged me with modernizing that. And so that was one of my first big projects and exposure to the corporate world. And so it was pretty crazy. Like, this is a multi-billion-dollar project that spanned almost 2 years.
Oh.
I was traveling the country, visiting all these offices. And so that was my first exposure.
Real hand.
Yeah. So I don't know how much deeper you want to go. I did that for 15 years. And then I started my entrepreneurial career by my 10th year into that space. I started sort of realizing this is not really what I think I want to do the rest of my life. I had sort of given up my creative side. I'm very artistic and creative, and I love photography and all those things. And so I was like, is this really what I want to do the rest of my life? And I was uninspired, unfulfilled, and just really I felt locked down. Like there was just no, I was climbing to the corporate ranks and making a lot of money doing it, but I just felt locked down in terms of like adding real value to the world. And what I did really wasn't that important.
Yeah.
And then they went through several layoffs, and I started seeing the writing on the wall. I was like, man, we're just numbers here. Like we're literally just numbers.
Absolutely.
And just sitting in a cubicle and just sort of like, one day I'm there, one day I could be gone and forgotten completely. And I was like, this is really not what I want for my life. And so I started setting out ways to try to figure out how to find more freedom. And that kind of led me down the entrepreneurial path.
Awesome. So what's the story behind the Whisperer, or the brand Whisperer?
Yeah, it actually started out, it's a twofold story. Originally, it was the Emotional Ninja, and this was coined by a client of mine back when I was really focusing exclusively on photography.
Okay.
And it was a couple that out of Raleigh hired me to shoot their wedding and some other stuff. I ended up doing some business work for them. And she came to me one day. She was sort of in tears after one of the photo shoots had ended. And she's like, I've had a lot of photo shoots over my lifetime, and this is literally the first time where I felt like I could actually be me. She's like, you're sort of like a ninja. You just draw people's emotions out. And so henceforth, like a few weeks later, I got a package in the mail, and it was a sweater or a sweatshirt that she had self-titled The Emotional Ninja.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then fast forward a few years, I was working with her in a business capacity, now doing the branding stuff that I'm doing, and she just reframed it from the Emotional Ninja to the brand Whisperer because of my ability, according to her, to sort of extract information from her, enabling her to sort of show up in her best side, and then connect that with her audience. So she sort of saw me as a bridge, like this whisperer between her audience and her brand. And yeah, so I got the two names from the same person.
Cool. And how did you transform from a whisperer to a storyteller?
Well, I mean, the whisperer was her term. I don't really know. I guess she could answer that. Storytelling for me has always been at the core of everything I've done. So from photography to videography to now helping people tell their brand story, that storyteller concept centers around everything that I do. It's like, how do you tell your story and share that with your audience to connect with them? Because people connect through stories, right?
Right,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made that the evolution of man, if evolution exists in that capacity, started around a campfire somewhere.
Yeah.
Small tribes coming together in little units and then forming these like bigger units around storytelling, whether it was tribal stories or hunting stories, and it just expanded from there to where we live today. Like we are just a community-based storytelling species. That's just who we are.
Cool. And you also talk about transformational branding. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
In capacity of...
Yeah, you transition to transformation branding and then brand storytelling, right?
Yeah, so transformational branding, really for me, I guess that's a nice fancy buzzword of saying, how can you create something around what you do, whether it's your value that you offer to the table, the problems that you solve, whether you're inspiring somebody, and how can you take that story and transform it into something else that someone else can latch onto, someone else can find resonance in, some emotional connectivity. And so in the process of sort of diving into who you are and what you do, you're transforming your business, transforming your brand so that other people can also be transformed.
Awesome. So you started working since 1997, and then you did your stint with your bank for about 15 years or so. Yeah. And then you transformed into photography and visual storytelling. So what changes have you seen in the landscape, and what has changed your approach towards it?
Well, I've never transformed into photography, so that story is a little bit off chronologically. I've always been a photographer. I've actually had a camera in my hand since I was 12 years old.
Sorry, my
so
apologies.
Yeah, no worries. So photography sort of, it was like the cart before the horse kind of situation there. Photography led me into my passion because I didn't realize it was something I could make money at. And so while I was still working in the corporate world, I was moonlighting on the side taking photographs, like literally like pimping myself out to anybody who needed photography, just sort of trying to understand if this is something I could do as a full-time profession. So that kind of led me into that path. And then, sorry, what was the part? I lost track of the final part of the question.
So the other part is, what changes did you see in the landscape from when you started till now for the last 20 years?
In terms of branding, marketing, business, entrepreneurship?
All of that stuff. And in terms of, the branding, brand storytelling and things like that.
Wow. So I did it in the corporate world. I did a lot of work in the marketing and branding world for them. I think really the biggest evolution of branding from, we'll just go back 20 years ago, is that more people have access to build their own business now.
Right.
And because of that larger sea of people, there's also a larger sea of people doing the same thing, but we also have a plethora of tools at our disposal now, right?
Right.
So everybody is sort of working on their brand in one way, shape, or another, whereas before it was very siloed. There were, entrepreneurs were entrepreneurs, but never have we had a chance like with this giant proliferation. I think I saw a number the other day that never in the history of business, small businesses, has there been this number of individual licensed businesses doing their own sort of thing. It's like social media has blown that up for everyone. Now everybody has the opportunity to share some wisdom or some wit or some solution or some inspiration or whatever with 7.5 billion people on the world.
Absolutely.
And so from that standpoint, branding has evolved by making it more accessible for a larger population, but also making it more available for people to launch their own business. Because before, the cost of starting a business was exponential compared to what it is today. Like if you didn't have social media or this camera setup that you have here in the studio, like this would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars for you to put this all together 20 years ago.
Yeah, but it's not as much.
Yeah, like this, putting together your own podcast 20 years ago wouldn't have existed. You would, the camera capabilities, the wireless capabilities, the posting and availability of proliferating this information. Like this would have cost you several tens of thousands of dollars to do per month. And so that cost has exponentially decreased, and the volume of people now doing these sorts of things has increased. And so to your question, the branding piece has never been more important because everyone's trying to stand out in a sea of eyeballs. Like we're all fighting for the same set of eyeballs on our content, right? And so it's like we either up our game or we die. Like that's all there is to it. And so all of these sort of experts and inspirers and social media gurus and all these people have now popped up in the last 10 to 20 years because now there's people that need those types of services. So it's like the onus since most of us are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, the onus is on us to now sell our business, and branding is the way to do that.
Absolutely, 100%. How do you use storytelling as a tool to kind of build brands that inspire and bring that loyalty factor into it?
Well, you are the brand. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a solopreneur, you are the brand. Like you just need to wrap your head around that. And I think everybody's always trying to sort of fit themselves into this concept of like finding a niche. And I like to reverse that around. Instead of finding the niche, become the niche. And in becoming the niche, you are finding a small pocket where you can show up as your best self, tell that story to an audience that you resonate with. And you're not trying to resonate with everybody. You're trying to target the people that you really want to make the most impact on.
Right.
And so in that space, you need to tell your story because 100%. People resonate, as we talked about earlier, people resonate with stories. And they don't buy your product per se. Your product should be good, but people buy the person behind the product. What's the story behind the product? How can I latch onto something and have some sort of an emotional bond to it? And that's what's going to make me become a repeat buyer, and a raving fan. So the storytelling is the center of all that. Like, how can you tell your story so other people hear that and are like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like what that person went through.
Cool. So I know you've extended your expertise into visual storytelling, and photography and videography is a great tool to kind of expand that expertise. So can you tell me a little bit about how that is actually helping amplify a brand?
Well, again, we live in a visual interface today.
Right.
We have access to visual interfaces 24/7. I mean, you've got 3 cameras running right here.
Right.
You're going to be posting this on social media. You're going to be posting this on your website, potentially, your podcast channel, YouTube. And so we live in a visual world. We have these phones basically glued to our hand and our eyeballs 24/7. And so that's a visual interface, right? And so our job is to be able to utilize that most effectively, tell that story. And you can do that through photography. You can do that through media. You can do that through virtual. There's all sorts of different ways.
Right.
But at the center of it is a visual asset that enables people, picture tells 1,000 words, right? A photo.
Yep.
Well, video tells 10,000 words, if you will. So you can figure out a strategy to combine both photo and video into everything else that you're doing and in alignment that with your business story. That's how you connect with people now.
Great. Any success story that you want to share that you've had recently?
Yeah, I've had a lot of success stories recently. I've been very blessed. Really, since really honing in on my superpowers and the things that make me passionate and the types of people that I really want to work with, I've really been able to start attracting the right type of audience. Before, I was like everyone else that I'm now showing how not to do this. I was like my own beta model. I was like basically pimping myself out for everything in any type of job. I'm like, I'll help you do that. I'll do this photography. I'll do that video. Like, and then I started realizing that I was saturating myself. And I was running myself thin because I wasn't really doing the type of stuff that I was best at. So when I started centering around my superpowers, I started
staying in the lane.
Yeah, staying in my own lane and really focusing on the things and the types of people. I'm industry agnostic, but there's a very specific type of person I enjoy working with. And we can go into that if you prefer. But
sure, absolutely.
I this might sound cliche, but I love working with people who are purpose-driven, who have a budget to spend. That's nice because I'm not doing this for free and I'm not cheap. But I want people who understand the value of being able to connect with a larger audience for a larger purpose. And they're not just in it to make money and get out of the business right away. I'm looking for people who I like to work and partner with people who are in this for the long haul. Yeah, people who are looking to make a significant difference in their market, in their industry, in their niche, whatever it is, and then help them tell that story. So I've got a couple of really cool stories. Recently, I started working with a former Olympic gold medalist who is retiring from the nonprofit world and is launching his own personal brand. So I've been helping him build his personal brand from nothing. And so being able to tell his story and to a larger...
Who's that?
His name is Steve Messler. Okay. He's a former bobsled U.S. Olympic champion. And so helping him tell his story, it's been really fun kind of watching that materialize. I have another client who is I didn't realize it until I started working with him and diving into the story, but he's sort of a pioneer in the dental industry. And he's reshaping the dental industry by combining more of a holistic approach to dentistry rather than just like, hey, let's pull your tooth out. They try to get to the root of the problem and better understand like what's the systemic issue going on here. It might not be your tooth. So anyway, helping them build their brand through a massive amount of things that they're doing. So yeah, there's a couple of really cool, fun stories.
Great. What are some mistakes that you see entrepreneurs and small businesses make? I ask this question to everyone, and everybody has got a different view on it. So I'd love to know you.
I think what's interesting is I am my own case study in all of this. I'm now on my 5th business. So I've sort of seen a bunch of different ways to build a business. And each one I've noticed in reflecting back, I've done different strategies to sort of, and different markets, different customer markets, et cetera. But I've done each one differently, but there was always been a common theme. And really the common theme was having a lot of clarity and crystallization on the value that you bring to the table and very clearly understanding the type of people that you want to make the most impact on. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was guilty of that, were so eager just to get into the market. We've got this grand, juicy idea. We just want to get it out to the world, right? And it's like, how do I just share this with as many people as possible? And what happens is what I was talking about earlier, you sort of water yourself down. You don't have a lot of clarity. You don't have a lot of understanding of who you really are as an individual and how you show up in a business world and a professional world so that you can better share that story with an audience. So that's lack of strategy, that's lack of clarity, that's lack of brand messaging. Your brand messaging is literally everything your customer sees. It's really important to understand what that looks like. And really, I guess those are probably the biggest 3 that I see.
Awesome. So, the world has changed quite a bit. We've become more digital first now. As businesses get into the digital first mode, what should they do? Let's say if you have some ideas on how should they sequence it out? Because a lot of this thing has to be about brand storytelling.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you just throw some light on that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a sequence that fits every company. I think every company has sort of a different model. I think there are some fundamental bones and structure that should go into that, but every business has a different way of going about it. I think with the digital world right now, we have an opportunity to really shape a narrative that reflects who we are as a business. And I think really the first most critical piece of that is what we talked about in the prior question, is having some clarity around your brand value, your brand messaging, understanding what you bring to the table, and being able to clearly articulate that so that when you show up in, whether it's the web or on a podcast like this, you're able to very clearly articulate what problem you're solving and for whom. Because people are listening, they're always watching, they're always thumbing through, and what catches their eye is what they hone in on, right? Or what they hear, they hone in on.
Right.
And so you have to be able to address all of these different pieces in your customer journey whether it's through social media, whether it's new inquiries, whether it's people who are sort of latent buyers, and being able to be consistent about that message and showing up consistently with value is
Right.
probably the biggest piece that I would say to focus on. Is always look at how can I add value to the marketplace? How can I add value to my potential buyer and be able to address that at every point on the customer journey?
Terrific. That was an awesome answer. And what emergent trends do you see happening in your world, brand storytelling, especially with the introduction of AI and things like that?
Man, that's a slippery slope, the AI. I've only started playing around with it in the capacity of what its potential is. But I work with a lot of other entrepreneurs who have really jumped into it pretty heavily. And I have a bit of a scary story to tell, and it's really more of a cautionary tale. I was noticing in a conversation with somebody recently that they were really struggling to find ways to finish their sentences. This is a true story. They were struggling with a way to finish with cogent clarity their thoughts.
The call to action.
It wasn't necessarily a call to action. It was just like you and I would be in a
Yeah.
conversation and I would sort of lose my
Okay.
train of
Thoughts.
thought on where I was going type of thing. And he was never like this before. And I've known this guy for a few years. And so I was like, bro, what's going on? At first I thought like, are you getting some like dementia or something? Early
Right.
onset dementia going on here. And anyway, we ended up having some conversations and some whiskeys and a few cigars later. It really started coming out that he was actually relying too heavily on AI.
Oh, okay.
AI to fill his thoughts, AI to finish his sentences, AI to write his copy, AI to write his emails, like AI to everything. And he's like, dude, I really have to tell you that I started thinking about this and like I'm really having struggle putting things together on a regular basis. And I don't know if it has anything to do with this or not, but this is the only correlation I can find. So I started doing my own study of that nature and started like kind of being observational about it. So you asked a question about where do I see it going? I see it going as a tool that is going to continue growing.
Yes.
The collective use of it is only expanding the collective use of it because it keeps getting power and it's based upon the inputs that humans give it. Its output is becoming equally stronger, probably in a greater ratio than the intake. And so my concern and my worry is that people become over-reliant on this for critical thinking, for critical distribution of information, and for being able to engage with the customer in a human capacity.
That's so true.
And I don't know, are we going to eventually become transhuman species? I don't know, that's a whole different esoteric conversation. But I would say that with the proliferation of AI, the ability for people to become quasi-experts has exponentially increased. And the ability for people to distribute information on a very high volume level of scale, while it's also really cool and efficient, there's a very slippery slope involved with that. And so I don't know that I'm not a prophet. I don't have a forecast on it, but I would say if things continue as they are unchecked, we are headed towards a very critical juncture between the idea of human critical thinking and the intervention of this non-human critical thinking.
I also have a feeling, just like how social media kind of has contributed to a lot of anxiety, depression, and imposter syndrome and things like that. I think AI will have some negative effects, while the positive effects are there for everybody to see. So I think we need to be, as business owners, we need to be cognizant of those negative effects and then, take a cautious, aggressive approach.
I completely agree with you. Well said. I think we need to be able to self-regulate like anything. It's like an overconsumption of anything, whether it be drugs, alcohol, pleasure, whatever it is. Like, where does that go? Like an overconsumption of anything leads us down a very slippery slope.
Absolutely.
So the onus is on us as humans, as critical thinkers, as sentient beings, which it is not yet, to make sure that we can self-monitor and control ourselves and use it in a, again, like anything, a consumptive value that is not going to be an overconsumptive value.
You talked about, becoming the niche. That's your term. I think you coined the term.
I don't know if I coined it, but I've not heard anybody else using it, so I'll take
You
credit
take
for
it.
it.
Okay, awesome.
I need to get that copyrighted.
Can you just expand that on a little bit and see how entrepreneurs can identify and embrace their unique niche with that becoming the niche?
Yeah, so we lightly touched on it earlier, but again, it really centers around you are the brand of your business. Unless you're a large multinational corporation or you're a massive company that is selling exclusively products, but even then, you are the brand. Especially if you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, you're a small organization. people are looking for the experience, right?
Right.
And from the other side around, I think we're always told to hone in on this idea of like, you need to really hone in on, and I'll use myself as an example. Early on in my photography world, I hired a business coach and she was like, dude, you're doing this, 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 and this, and this. You really need to just focus on one thing. And I was like, but I don't really like doing one thing. I like doing a lot of different things. And this is, 15 years ago. I'm a good wedding photographer. I'm a good engagement photographer. I'm really good at headshots. Like I like doing a lot of different things. But I noticed in the process of growing my different businesses that while I like doing a lot of things, you can end up sort of down like chasing down a rabbit hole, right? Feverishly. So it is important to sort of understand some core competencies and core values that you align with. But more importantly, I don't want to limit myself. And in today's business, I'm very industry agnostic. I can work with coaches. I can work with chess clubs. I can work with anybody to help them grow their business because I don't have to be an engineer to help you grow your engineering business. My job is to help you better understand you as an engineer and then share that story with the higher audience. And so becoming the niche really sort of reverses that paradigm and brings it back to you. It's your business, right? So why would you want to try to fit into somebody else's categories, right?
Right.
So the whole idea is to bring the focus back on you, have clarity around the things that you do best, the things that light you up, the things that really make you get up every single morning. Like I'm excited to wake up most mornings. There's very few mornings where I wake up and like, shoo, man, I just really want to go back to bed. I don't want to go into work today because every single day I'm doing something. This is something that I love doing, something that I'm creating, and I'm working with the type of people that I want to work with. So becoming the niche is changing the paradigm from focusing exclusively on like a composite that could box you in to figuring out the things that you do best, the things that you're passionate about, the things that you love, the types of people that you want to work with, and then set out to create a brand around that. And you are the brand. So if you're clear and crystallized on those messaging principles and those messaging pillars, then that enables you to become the niche. It's sort of like carving out your own little ecosystem so that you can attract the right type of people that need that ecosystem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You basically empower leaders to establish their own authority in their niche. So the question now is, what are those first steps to become that authority?
For another company or for me?
For the other company.
For another company, I think it's pretty simple. Understand who you are. And one of the things that I take every client through is this brand discovery blueprint exercise. And in this exercise, we really pull back the covers. It's part psychology. There is some hypnosis involved. There's some visualization techniques. There's a lot of like science behind it. And really just kind of pulling out all of the things that you bring to the table. What are your values? What are your missions? What are your mantras? What are the problems that you solve? Who are the type of people you like to work with? And then taking all that information and consolidating it so you have sort of a roadmap of all the things that you bring to the table. And then once you have that roadmap, you're able to clearly articulate it to the right audience so it doesn't get lost in translation.
Got it.
And so the first piece of that is just really kind of it's a self-awareness, self-introspection exercise that I guide you through and kind of have a better understanding of who you are.
Toolbox.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And the output of that is your toolbox to show up in the modern marketplace.
Got it. Let's just shift some gear and then let's talk a little bit about your business and your advice for young entrepreneurs. So I'll always take the example of Aryan. Aryan is a 23-year-old or 22-year-old going 23. He's a brand communication major from Clemson. Now he wants to start up fresh and he doesn't want to go to the corporate world, which is good. So he wants to start this digital marketing company or let's say brand communication. What would you advise him today, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned in the past that you can impart to someone like him to get where he wants to at a much faster pace?
Great question. 23 years old, I think first and foremost, he needs to understand the value of relationships.
Excellent.
Really think that at this point in his career, he should start figuring out ways to connect with the right types of people that fill him up. And these can be mentors, these can be coaches, these can be collaborators, these can be people that he genuinely likes to be around, and vice versa. I think that's the first point. And then come to terms with the idea that in every moment of your life, you're building relationships. Whether you're sitting at the grocery line, whether you're at a car wash, like there's always an opportunity for you to build some relationship with somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've had the most random conversations in the most random places that ended up being some sort of a stepping stone for me in some larger capacity. So I think that would be the first piece. And these relationships, the better you get at them, the better you get at them.
Right.
And the more comfortable you become with striking up conversations with random strangers, the more comfortable you become being in front of an audience of random strangers, the more comfortable you become talking about who you are and the value that you bring to the world in a non-sales capacity. So that would be my first piece. The second piece is really getting down and dirty on the value that you bring to the world. What is it that you provide that nobody else can, or
Right.
or what is it that you provide that you can uniquely provide that nobody else can?
Right.
Being very, very clear on that. So you said he wants to start a digital marketing agency. What's his core values within that business? Does he want to focus on multimedia? Does he want to focus on social media? What are the things within that paradigm that really light him up? And then having some clarity around that is going to enable him to speak to the right types of people
Right.
when he's having those conversations, right? It's like, I'm not going to show up to a rodeo and start talking about rodeos. I know nothing about rodeos. I might like watching them. I might have seen a few in my life, but I know nothing about being a cowboy. I know nothing about riding a steer. So, and it's not really one of my passions. So why would I try to go market specifically
Right.
to these
Exactly.
types of people? So I think that would be the second piece. And then the third piece, man, I think you need to continue learning. There is never an opportunity to stop learning. I can't tell you how much I have learned from even people like yourself, showing up and seeing your business club and how you operate things. Those are things that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about doing if I had launched my own sort of concept. So always be open and flexible to learning. It's really important that we're perpetually learning. And learning doesn't mean you always have to have a coach or a mentor or
No,
go
yeah.
back to school. Dude, there are books everywhere on the planet. You've got 3 amazing books right here. If you haven't read these yet, at least 3 or 4 times, start right now
Right.
reading these books again, because every time you read, something new is delivered to you. So I think the perpetual concept of learning would probably be, there's a bunch of different things I could probably say, but those are probably my big 3 right now.
Awesome. You talk about being authentic in branding. So can you just expand that a little bit?
Well, look at yourself as a consumer, right? Let's just imagine your journey for a second. You're looking to buy a big ticket item, or you're looking to buy a small ticket item. What's the first thing you do? You might Google it.
Yeah.
You might go to their reviews. You might go to their social media. You might go to their website. You might go somewhere to find out some information about them. You might ask for a referral. Maybe your friend told you about this person. You're going to want to know the story. Tell me the 411 on why you like this person, or why you like this product, or why are you referring it to me, right? So everybody's always doing their own due diligence in every purchase that we make, right?
Right.
So think about why you make a purchasing decision. There's always a reason behind why you purchase something. You might have values on quality. You might have values on quantity. You might have values on customer service. Maybe you like this type of car because this is the brand new your dad drove. I don't know. Everybody has these values. But what happens when you make a purchase is you're making emotional checklists off of the values that align with you, right?
Right.
And one of those values that all humans desire is truth, honesty, integrity, and authenticity. Because we live in this marketplace now where there's any second you can see right through the veil of bullshit. It's true. You can very quickly see if this person is authentic. And what happens is if you go to their website and there's a different message, if you go to their social media, there's a different web message, and then you start reading
There's
their
no coherence.
yeah, and then you start reading their reviews and you'd be like, there's a lot of bad reviews here. Something's not adding up, right? So the idea of being authentic isn't necessarily saying it is saying be true to yourself. It is saying be true to your audience. But it's also saying make sure you understand the value that you bring to the world, and across your platforms have an authentic, genuine, consistent method that when people read about you, when people research about you, they're getting this message of people like him.
Right.
He adds value. He adds quality. He shows up when he says he's going to show up. He has good content to support it. He has case studies to show that he's actually doing what he's doing. All of these things add up this. It's like this giant stew pot. And then when you taste it, it's ooh, that's some magic right there, right? So that's what being authentic really means.
Absolutely. Great. So what's one branding lesson that you learned that you wish to pass on to the next generation of entrepreneurs?
Relationships, man.
Okay.
Relationships.
You said it,
They're
yeah.
literally everything. And I speak from experience because I came from a very cutthroat corporate world. And I came from a very cutthroat environment growing up. One of 12 kids, my dad used to actually pit us against each other in wrestling matches and fights and races. And just it was this constant competition ring, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, my siblings and I don't have strong relationships, although some of them are improving, because we're always sort of
Fighting, yeah.
And yeah, whenever we're around each other, it's everyone's always trying to revert to their childhood trauma self. And it's I'm better than you. I'm better than this. Let me make this about me. So I had this model, and you all know it, if you know anything about psychology, the model that we're taught is the model that we bring to the table, right? And unless we become self-aware of that model and see its fallacies and flaws and do something to unpack that and deal with it, we're going to continue showing up in that capacity, right? So fast forward to me, I'm using myself as the case study here. Grew up in a uber competitive environment, went to an uber competitive college, played sports my entire life. So I've always had this model. Then I got hired into the workplace, and I was like only one of two people hired for this position. So I had to compete with all these other thousands of people to get this job. And it's like, I won, I am the victor, right? And so in every situation of my life, it's always like, yeah, win, kill or be killed type of thing. That's literally my model. And so I grew up with that. I got married and I did the same thing, like have the best wife, have the best house, have the best car. And I noticed that when I got divorced, I'm going a little personal here, but I noticed that when I got divorced, it was really the first time in my life that I had faced a real failure. And I was like, something doesn't add up here. I've done everything right. I've competed, I've won, I've kicked everyone's ass. I've done all these right things. I've launched a business. Like I was a vice president of my corporation, at the age of 24. Like I've done all these different things in my life. And it's like, well, what's the point? Now I'm divorced and my wife is gone and my children are left here. And I was like, all these different things, and things just didn't start adding up. And so it was really, really an exercise of humility, an exercise of introspection to come to the conclusion where I am today. And I'll spare you all the minutiae in between, that we are not a competitive species. We're a collaborative species.
Collaborative, yeah. I always believe in that.
We are a collaborative species, and it behooves us to share our value with the world. Because in the process of sharing our value with the world, I make you better. And in the process, you make him better. And in the process, he makes someone else better. And all of that comes back in your karmic world in some way, shape, or form. And so you always get out what you put into it, right? Whether you believe in good, bad, or evil, there is a universal law that what you put into something, you get out. If you don't practice, you're not going to perform well. If you do practice, you are going to perform well, right? The more you work on yourself, the better human you become. The better human you become, the better business person you become. And so this whole idea of like community and collaboration over competition is really probably, if there's one lesson I can teach anybody who doesn't understand how the world works, it is that community and collaboration over competition, every sense of the word.
I always have an abundance mentality.
Yes.
So there's so much out there, there's no point in having competition.
100%.
Yeah. So
it actually hurts you more than it helps you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't mean you have to be a patsy. That doesn't mean you have to I'm just going to let everybody have all this. That's not what I'm saying. You have a right to go out and get yours.
Yep.
But in the process of getting yours, don't F people over.
Right.
Build relationships.
Ridicule others.
Yeah.
Edify them and move on.
Yeah.
So,
Serve first. Serve first. Really, it's just really a kind of like build relationships, serve first. And I really, truly believe that to my core now.
Great insights into your personality, Deevo, and, enjoyed so much. Now we'll shift the gear a little bit and talk a little bit into your business. So you talked about your thoughts. Mm-hmm. These are all your thought leadership coming out, right? Let's dive a little bit into your business. So what the name of your business is?
The Brand Storyteller.
The Brand Storyteller. That's the new name, or
that's the name of the business.
Okay, the Brand Storyteller.
I am the Brand Storyteller. I am the brand.
Okay.
And the company is called the Brand Storyteller.
And what services do you offer?
Well, that's a great question, because we're actually shifting that. Originally, when I first started this business over a year ago, this version of the business, and this is now the third iteration of this business, which is also another tool and a lesson for people.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be nimble and flexible.
Well, we're doing that with Business Club.
Yeah, you're never locked in, man.
Yeah.
Just always keep your eye on what's working, what's not working. And if you have to make some tweaks, make some tweaks. Micro tweaks are good. Macro tweaks are also good. Just have a focus and a purpose behind it. Right. So that being said, I'm living proof that it works. So I've shifted my business. I originally thought when I launched this business that we were more of a service-based concept, right? And so strategy, content, amplify our service, that portfolio. Does that make sense? But the more I got into the servicing, the more I realized that really wasn't what my core passions were. And while I love and I still offer those services, I do them in a sort of a partnership capacity now. So I'm really primarily focusing on helping you build your brand, get your messaging right, and then ongoing coaching and consulting so that you have a partner by your side so you're not just left high and dry after a few months. And so that model now works like the strategy, the discovery. We do the content if that's part of the solution, but then we hand it off to partners that I've built over the last 20 years in my own businesses, from web designers to social media managers to SEO experts, all those different things. And then instead of throwing that at you and asking you to manage that, we manage it for you. So it's more
Like a managed service.
It's a fractional CMO concept for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Is really what it's turned into.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the brand storyteller is technically a fractional CMO. You understand the problems, and you try to help them get their presence, and then you hand it over to the partners while you manage the show.
That's correct. Okay. And then so that you can stay in your lane, focus on your business, which is primarily should be centered around business development,
right,
selling and sort of sharing that message with a larger audience. And then we help devise that strategy for you and then manage that for you with you alongside you as your collaborative partner.
Great. Looks like you have these partners. Who are how many service providers do you have, or do you constantly change, or is it?
No, I have a core, and that depends upon the primary product. So we have a web design team, we have an SEO individual. I have 2 social media managers that I've been working with for my own businesses for the last 10 years. We have a paid advertising expert team, and we have a graphic design team. So those are like my 5 core content pillars. And then there's a bevy of other sort of ancillary services that you might need. You know, you're kind of a big deal, so you might want to have a PR campaign. So I have a bevy of PR partners that I work with on a regular capacity that, like, if I think this is something that's in your wheelhouse at this point, we would hand you off to them in a consultative capacity. So a stable of 5 core, and then we've got a bevy of just other services that you need. And if there's something else that comes into the space, my job as your partner is to find that for you so that you can sort of focus on the things that matter to your business.
And let's talk a little bit about pricing. How do you price? I know every business, every project is a different price. But what's your pricing philosophy?
My pricing philosophy is first and foremost add value. But at the same time, I need to be able to pay my team, I need to pay myself, and I need to be able to make money. So it really depends upon the project and the scope and the duration of the project. There is no one right answer. I don't know if you're looking for a ballpark. An average client commitment for 6 months can be spending anywhere between $30,000 and $70,000 for a variety of different services, and that includes my coaching and consulting.
Yeah, I heard there's a term. I think it's Jim Rohn who said, "Price is an issue only in the absence of value."
100%.
Yeah.
And if you're adding value and you can clearly articulate that, the right person will see that, hear that, and not have a problem with it. And that's different for everybody. Like your price tag might be higher than mine, but as long as your value is corollary to that or greater, it should be greater to that. Again, it's sort of like under promise, over deliver concept. So I didn't never used to understand that. I had a scarcity model early in my career because, I was like, I just walked away from $250,000. Man, I don't want to eat saltine crackers the rest of my life, but I don't know, how am I supposed to price for this? So for me, it was an iterative process, and, surrounding myself with more experienced people to help me kind of navigate through that.
Got it. And who are your primary target customers? I mean, I know there are a lot of people who may be able to afford this and some people who may not be able to afford this. So I'm trying to understand who your core target customers, so that people who are listening can probably refer.
Yeah, it's a great question. This has too evolved, but primarily purpose-driven entrepreneurs, CEOs who have a marketing budget, who have been in business for at least 5 years generally. Entrepreneurs, small businesses that are looking to either launch a new product or scale a new product or reorganize their brand for a different audience. I also work with a lot of aging CEOs who have massive amount of success in their corporate world, but want to add something different to the world, to sort of kind of caught up with the nonsense of the corporate a rat race, and want to, whether they're a coach or whether they want to become a yogi expert or maybe they want to sponsor retreats, I help them build personal brands around that. So
say someone like, say, Jack Canfield or
very similar. Yeah,
similar. Maybe at a
but he's a little bit higher at price tag, I suppose, than I am. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, I understand what a personal brand is. Like Tony Robbins is a personal brand.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm a personal brand, so my brand is a personal brand.
Got it.
And we would build a personal brand around you, and so your personal brand would involve a bunch of different micro businesses underneath you. But at the center of all of that is the genius Sudev, and so we would take that.
I'm honored.
So we would take that, create a persona around this, and then start selling that and marketing that to the right type of audience that would also need your genius.
Got it. So talk to me a little bit about your customer service philosophy. I know you value that a lot, and you have to value that in this business that you're in. So talk a little bit about customer service philosophy.
Yeah, so I think it's a fine line between sensibility, intuition and pragmatism, and no two situations are alike. But I don't think that the customer is always right.
Yep.
I do think that there is a time and a place to stand your ground. That being said, it should be done from a diplomatic perspective. There's no reason to burn any bridges, no matter where they are in the customer
absolutely.
journey. But first and foremost, I think listen first and understand what the problem is, and come at that from a position of how can I serve this so that this is a win-win scenario for everybody. And so I think from that perspective, people are really engaged if they find that you're actively listening to them
Absolutely.
and trying to understand whatever it is that they need, whatever it is that they want, whatever it is the problem they might have. And if you show sort of empathy around that, and you show action empathy around that, then I think for me, that goes a lot further than just sort of like giving things away for free. And that doesn't always mean that you have to give away things, but it does mean you should come at it from an empathetic perspective of trying to solve everyone's problems. And that includes the solution that you offer in the first place. So the customer is what keeps you in business. So it's really important that you understand. And then the most important piece is to clearly understand that it's not how you view your business that matters. It's how your customer views your business, because perception is reality. And you may think a type of way about something and how good you are, or how great you are, how awesome your product is. But if your customer doesn't feel that, then you have a problem. So being able to listen and look at your data and talk to your customers. Like, you should be having regular conversations with your customers and understand what's going well, what's not going so well, where can we improve, how can we make a tweak? Like, what are the things that we can do to continue and perpetuate this relationship, if that's what your objective is?
Absolutely. Talking about customer surveys, let's also talk a little bit about customer experience. So what's your view on customer experience?
It's everything. I was just saying in the previous question, perception is reality. And we don't want to sell a product. I'm not selling a product. I'm selling a service. What I'm mostly selling is an experience. I want your interactions with me every single time you walk away to have had some sort of value that I added to you, whether it's an inspiration, whether it's an idea, whether it's solving a problem, whether it's just making you feel good. Maybe sometimes it's just listening to you have to vent about something. But the whole point of what you do in the customer journey is being able to address at every single point whatever it is that the customer is looking for along that journey. And sometimes it might just be simple question and answers. It might just be trying to better understand who you are and why you add value to the table. And not every customer has the same spending patterns. Some people are latent buyers and they're just doing some research. So it's really important that in all those interactions in that customer journey that you have shown up as your best self, because it's going to come back to you somewhere down the road, whether as a referral or they actually coming back to you to actually buy.
Right, got it. So one of the things that I wanted to give you kudos was about the Impact series that you started it. I was part of it yesterday. I did gain some connections, very good connections, Nick and the other couple of other people. And I did understand what you're trying to achieve out of it. So kudos to you for that. And I think that's very valuable. How can you make an impact while you're serving others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very good.
Thank you. That's going to grow. I'm really looking forward to where that is going to go.
Is that the first of the episodes?
That's fourth. That's month number 4. So we started off with, I think we had 4 people in the first one. We've grown each session. Last session, we had over 20 people there. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm really excited about it.
Cool.
I'm glad
do you
were
want to
able
talk a little bit about that Impact series?
Yeah. So again, everything that I do is centered around community. Like that, I truly believe at the core of who I am that community is everything. And so I launched Impact. I've been in masterminds for about 10 years now, bounced around to different masterminds. And I even launched my own very structured mastermind 3 years ago. But I never really, in the other ones that I was part of, I sort of always was never sated. There was always like a few things missing for me. And most importantly, one of the things that I found missing, it was too business oriented. It didn't offer the opportunity to really fully engage with other people in a one-on-one capacity. So I came up with this concept, and it's called Impact, and it stands for something. I should probably remember what it is, but I never do. I have a horrible memory and for those things, but it's an acronym. But the idea is that once a month, we invite entrepreneurs to spend 90 minutes online in a virtual capacity, and we do separate breakout sessions. And within those breakouts, you're solving problems, you're connecting with another individual, you're talking about personal things, like you're getting the opportunity to really meet people,
Oh yeah,
which yesterday
absolutely.
you saw. And it's not just in a business capacity. I try to have a nice
Personal, yeah,
balance between, because I believe that your business and your personal lives clearly intersect in every way, shape, and form. And so
absolutely
I
do.
want to make sure that when you're showing up to this, it's not just some boring business thing. You can get business sense, but you can make connections, maybe walk away with a personal lesson. Yesterday, we focused on the
Yeah,
idea of fear and how it controls our
yeah.
narrative. And so, yeah, so the whole idea is just to continue to grow this. I eventually want to build a community around it. I want to have a retreat around it. In fact, we're targeting our first retreat, October 2025.
Oh,
We will be in
count me,
Tulum, Mexico for our first ever impact retreat.
count me in.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about your team. Okay. So I know you have this different service provider. Are they located locally, or are they different parts
All
of
over the world in
All
the
over
States. Yeah, I've got my web design team, and part of my social media team is in Iowa. My core social media manager is in Michigan. So I got people in different places that I collaborate with,
great.
some Charlotte based and some national based and some international.
Okay. So let's just look at some of your, some reflections. So what does living your best brand mean to you personally?
It actually came to me in a dream. I don't know. I was sleeping one morning and I was like, I need a cool tagline. And right now it's whenever zig, I zag, which I really like, but I'm not sure if everybody has clarity on that. And so I saw somewhere on social media, like everyone's always talking about living your best life. And I was like, it's so overused and oversaturated. I was like, what's a better way to say something like that? And then I thought,
Your best brand.
living your best brand. And so I do branding. And so
Yeah,
it's just sort of
why
like,
not?
it's sort of like a mockery play off of it, but it
Works.
rings really well. Right?
Yeah, it adds value to us. When I looked at it, wow, man. I mean, I've not thought about that part. Now, why not live your best brand?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's cool. So you wear many hats: speaker, strategist, coach, marketer, storyteller, all of those. How do you balance these roles while you are at business and at personal life?
I think for me, I'm very organized and I have an uncanny sense of time, which is odd. I've always been really oddly connected to like what time it is. You can generally ask me what time it is at any point in the day, and I generally am
Have an idea.
right around the 5 to 10 minute mark,
Wow.
rarely off. So I'm very good at that. But I'm also really good at setting structure every day for myself, because I have a tendency to chase squirrels, because my mind is always like overactive. So like, ooh, squirrel. So I really had to start developing
Chasing
some
squirrels.
Yeah, exactly. So I realized that I needed to start developing some patterns. And so one of the things I really got into is sort of mindfulness around meditations and journaling in the morning and journaling at the night. And so I'm very organized in terms of like what I call my big three. And so I clarify my big three at nighttime. Like, what are the three biggest things I want to do tomorrow? Like, come hell or high water, these three things are going to happen. Today was the podcast with you. And it doesn't always have to be a task, but like, what are three things that you're going to focus on tomorrow that are going to add the biggest bang for your life, for your business,
Right.
and keep the needle in the trajectory of the North Star, whatever that is for you, right? And so I clarify those three at night. And then in the morning, I revisit them, because things can happen sometimes. Like, you wake up in the morning, you sort of like, get your things out of the way, and it's like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to focus on these three. So I reiterate my three, and I focus on those. That's it. That's all there is during the day, and then anything else is just bonus for me.
Yep.
So I'm very organized in that space, and I've always been. I can't really explain, where the inspiration came from, but my personal life is really important to me. So my health is important to me. If I'm an unhealthy fat bastard, I'm not going to be able to show up in business very well, right?
Yeah.
So I've always made health like a big priority. If I work out, I play soccer, I go to the gym usually 4 or 5 times a week. And so I segment my life very, very well. And I also segment my business week. And so like Monday and Tuesday are my days. It's like nobody else can take those unless I choose to allow them to have that. I spend time on my business. I spend time on the things that are adding for my business. And then
Great.
the rest of the days I segment out. Like, there's office day, there's podcast day, there's my own podcast day, there's meet with clients days, things of that nature. So for me, it's about being organized and segmenting the things that matter most to me, and making sure that those things that matter most actually get done, and anything else is frosting on the cake.
Terrific. What legacy do you hope to leave with your idea through and your work in branding and storytelling?
You know what, man? I've thought about this question till I can't even tell you how many times. This whole age-old philosophical question centers around like, who are you? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And I've thought about this, and I've come up with 150 different answers. But every single time I think about those 150 answers, it really centers around, for me, at the end of the day, I hope I added some value to your life.
Brilliant.
And that's really pretty much all there is to it. I hope that you viewed me as a servant in a capacity of giving you some sort of inspiration, some sort of value, some sort of idea, some sort of critical thought that maybe changed your trajectory in some small way. And then the final piece of that is being able to connect people. I always joke, I call myself a human collector, and that sounds a bit morbid when you first hear it, but like, dude, I have the biggest Rolodex on the planet. And because I'm always meeting people in every way, like literally I meet people everywhere I go, and I take down their information, I store it in my phone, and I write down where I met them, who they are, like what's one fun thing I learned about them. And then when you need somebody, like I want to connect people, like that's what I do. I just want to make sure that people, again, community, right? Community and collaboration over competition. And I think the more we can see things from that lens, it's just a ripple effect across the globe. Like there's just so many ways that those become a win-win scenario. So that's kind of like my impetus.
I must tell you, your energy is contagious.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, I truly believe in, adding value to people and their lives. There's a saying somewhere, I said, you leave the world better than you found.
Yeah.
So you living that.
I tell my kids all the time, I have 2 teenage daughters. Well, I actually have 5 children now because my partner has 3. Those are my microwave popcorn kids. But I always tell them, don't be a consumer, be a producer.
Right.
Don't be a consumer, be a producer. Like add value some way, shape, or form, whether it's doing the dishes, whether it's cleaning up the dog poop. If you see something on the floor, pick it up. Like don't just look at it and keep walking. Like I can't even tell you. It's like I see this happen all the time. Like I coach my daughter's lacrosse team, and I walk through the parking lot of the school, and there's like shit thrown all over the parking lot. I was like, dude, you just ate that bag of McDonald's, opened your window and just threw it on the floor. Like what are you thinking? So again, don't be a consumer, man. Add value to the planet.
Great.
It will come back to you.
Yep, absolutely.
If for no other reasons, for selfish reasons, that's how karma works.
Yep, I agree 100%. Now let's just shift a little bit more gear. It's going to get into the rapid fire question.
Do the hot seat?
The hot seat.
It's hot in here. I'm getting hot.
The way it works is that even though it's rapid fire, you still can take as much as you want to explain anything that you want, but I'll keep it simple.
Don't give me that freedom, man. I like to talk.
I would love to hear more of you. What's the first thing you do every morning?
Right now in the wintertime, I jump in my pool, which is now 49 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah. Not every morning, but most mornings. But probably I get my tea. I drink a cup of coffee. I like to sit down. I have a infrared red light, and I turn it on. I open up my journal, get my cup of coffee, and I start doing my morning.
Right, okay, great. Describe your brand philosophy in one word.
Add value. That's 2 words.
2 words. Value. What's a book every entrepreneur should read?
Whew, man. You got one of them above your head.
The Compound Effect?
Yeah. I like the book by Bouchard, The Habit Book.
The Habit Book?
What's it called? Habits. Something.
Brendan Bouchard?
Yeah. Okay. Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
It changed my mindset on everything.
Yeah.
Either that or some books on stoicism, because that's really kind of like my headspace. Yeah. I think you should have 2 books that you should read: your personal development side and your professional development side. Yeah. So I would go probably, if I had to pick one, Atomic Habits, and then I would probably go Marcus Aurelius, Daily Meditations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Coffee or tea?
Both. I drink a hybrid. Rasa, if you're listening, I've been trying to get them to sponsor my podcast now for 2 years. It's a company called Rasa. They have a adaptogenic mushroom coffee tea blend, which I'm drinking right now. Wink, wink. Yeah.
Cool. Biggest branding myth that you've ever heard?
Your designs are your brand. Your logo, your colors. Yeah. No. Everyone, and not everyone, that paradigm is shifting. But a lot of people truly believe that they have a website, they have a cool business card, they have a really cool logo, then that's their business, that's their brand. And then they wonder why things fizzle out and nobody wants to connect with it, because nobody knows what you're doing. So your brand is literally every single piece in your business that is your messaging, that other people read, that creates the perception that they have of your business. That's your brand.
1000% agreed.
Yeah.
What's your favorite storytelling medium?
Photography.
Yeah. Not video?
Video has a lot of power. You're going to make me cry on this, man. Photography for me is it's something emotional. I didn't have any photographs with me as a kid. Nothing. My parents, we didn't have money. I didn't have a camera. I had nothing. And I look at when I create photographs for people, I shoot for a couple of magazines in Charlotte. And, I do it because it's a passion project of mine and I shoot it for free. I don't charge for these sessions. I give the photos to the magazine. And being able to capture somebody in the way that I capture them and enabling them to show up as their true self, whatever that is. I'm photographing a couple tonight. His wife has heavy onset Alzheimer's.
Oh,
And he doesn't know how much longer that she has on this planet with him. And they're going to be featured in this magazine. And my job is to tell their story so that he has something to remember her by, because he doesn't know how much life she has. Dude, like, if that isn't a humbling experience, I don't know what is.
Yep.
And you only have one opportunity to do that. Like, I literally froze that moment in time for you to have forever.
wow.
Like, what an honor that is to take something and freeze for people so that they can hold it and breathe it and see it. And it's like, for me, like when I first saw a photo that I had taken and I saw it, it was a shitty photograph. It was like me and my friends jacking around on our skateboards. But I remember just thinking, dude, I will have this forever. No one can take that from me. No matter what, I will have that photograph. And so, yeah, photography, man, there's just, it's creative, it tells a story, and there are subtleties and nuances to photography that video cannot offer, right? It's sort of like, it's like social media. It's like thumbing through stuff. Video is like constant playing, and video has value, but it's more like on a linear line. I think photography has like these multi-dimensional projections that everyone can interpret differently. Because your context is differently. When you see a photo, you might see something else might catch your eye different than mine. And I just think, yeah, photography. Sorry, that was a long-winded response.
That's all right. One tool you can't live without for your work.
Does it have to be like a physical tool?
No, just another thing.
My mind.
Of course.
I love my mind, man. I like, my mind. I don't know what I would do without it. Just being able to have conversations with people and sit here and like soak up your presence and, yeah, man, my mind.
I know. I think I know the answer to the next one, but I'll still ask you, what's your favorite keynote topic that you'd like to speak about?
I think really stepping into your own power, becoming the niche, you are the brand, like really understanding the power that you bring to the world and being able to share that message. Like, if I can change one person's life who hears this podcast by sharing something that I would have never had the opportunity to share had I not be doing what I'm doing, like, how many messages have been lost over the years because someone couldn't share it? Like, it's like, have you ever seen the Monty Python skit where, you know anything about Monty? There's a skit, Monty Python, it's an old English skit, I think maybe the early 80s. It's slapstick, but it's really intelligent slapstick. And there's a scene where King something or other is riding through the countryside in his fake pony, broom horse, whatever, and he's got like his entourage that is just like another person. Anyway, they come across these like dirty villagers living in muck, and they're like, he's like, I'm the king, you should be bowing before me. And these villagers who just appear initially as just like these Neanderthalish type of characters, they suddenly go into this diaspora of like philosophical musings around political ruminations and all. And it's sort of like, I always laugh at that because when I see it, 20, 30, 40 years ago and several hundred years ago, those types of people could be influencers today in changing someone's life and someone's trajectory. Like your son, he's this bright young man and he's got all these really cool ideas on how to do things. He could have never done that 20 years ago. He would have never had an audience. He would have never been able to share and dispense his little piece of wisdom and make someone else's life better. And so for me, it's like, dude, you have an obligation to share whatever you have, because if you can share this with somebody and make their life better, bro, how can that be a bad thing?
Yep.
So yeah.
I say share the cake. For knowledge.
100%.
Yeah. Cool. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Seeing you step into your power, whether that's through my lens or through your brand, and really showing you how to share your message, and then knowing that that's going to make this ripple effect that we just talked about.
Got it. One personal value you would never compromise on?
I think creativity, really, for me. Creativity. Or maybe responsibility. Yeah, I'm going to change that. Responsibility. Because I think at the center of everything, responsibility is a shared value across all of your other values. Whether that's showing up on time, being true to your word, adding value to the world, taking accountability for the things that you own, self-awareness. They all sort of center around that idea of personal responsibility and how you show up in the world and interact with the larger ecosystem that is not yours.
A brand you admire and why?
I'm going to say I admire Tony Robbins' brand. I'm actually going to be starting a program with him in January because he literally came from nothing. Poor person, nothing to his name. And he realized early on, primarily before anyone else in this space of like self-help gurus, that there is value in your inherent self. And if you can somehow tap into that and understand that and share that with a larger audience, look at the ripple effect. He owns like 700 businesses. He's touched. How many lives has this dude touched? And most of the other people, you know, Darren Hardy, Brandon Burchard, all these other people who've sort of kind of fallen in, they've all been touched in some way, shape, or form by Tony Robbins. And whether you agree with his message or not, and I'm not like a big rah-rah type of guy, but I do think that what he provides to other people and what he's done, his ripple effect will live on for an infinity.
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn or Instagram?
Instagram. I have not figured out the LinkedIn recipe yet. I got to be honest with you. It's too boring for me.
What's your favorite productivity hack?
Productivity hack? My big three, really. I think that has been fundamentally game-changing for me and just sort of centering around accomplishing those big three every single day, come hell or high water.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's the most challenging project that you ever worked on?
I was working with a motivational speaker / CNN host who philosophically I disagreed with in every way, shape, and form. And I took her on as a client, even though my spirit said
Didn't allow
no.
you to, okay.
My spirit literally said, this is the recipe for disaster. I didn't listen to it. I said, F you. This is a lot of money. I'm going to take it. And it was a lot of money. It was multiple six-figure contract. And early on, I started seeing the signs that my spirit was trying to warn me about, and I just kept with it. I was like, I can convert her. I can make the difference. But at the end of the day, I was not living my niche.
Yeah.
I was not living my values. And I basically had to fire her because I said, I can't support the things that you're asking me to promote for you. I just can't get behind it. And I did it for 6 months, and I just dreaded interacting. I dreaded working. I dreaded having to do anything. The name of her came up on my project list of my big three, and I would get anxiety around it. And it was. And it's again, I'm not denigrating what she does.
Yeah.
You do you, but it wasn't my core values. I was not in alignment with anything that she believed in.
Right.
And I felt like a fraud helping her promote it.
Basically, it didn't align with your values. As a result, you felt that conflict within you.
Yeah. And that's what becoming the niche is.
Yeah.
Stay in alignment with the things that you believe in and talk about the things that you love to do. You're going to start attracting the right type of people. I wasn't doing that. I was trying to fit myself into someone else's category, someone else's value, someone else's idea that they believed in. And in the process, I got lost.
Got it. Steve talks a lot about this through his Ikigai.
Yeah. It's the same concept,
same
100%.
concept,
Yeah.
Cool. Best advice you ever received?
You don't have all the answers.
Okay.
Honestly, you don't have all the answers. There's always something new, something bigger, something better, something stronger. Be open and receptive to change and realize that you can grow in the process.
Cool. If you weren't a brand storyteller or brand strategist, what would you be doing?
A coach, which I'm now doing.
Okay.
Yeah, a coach. I love coaching people. I coach my daughter's lacrosse team. I've coached my other daughter's soccer team since she was age 5. I'm now coaching CEOs and executives in a variety of different ways. I love the idea of being able to sit in a one-on-one capacity or a capacity of leadership and being able to help people alter their trajectory.
Got it.
It's something that I never realized that I was passionate about or even good at until I actually started doing it accidentally. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. At the end of the day, I help you become a better person.
Right, absolutely. Why not?
That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Add value before.
100%. Yeah.
Cool. What's a hobby that inspires your work?
Painting.
Painting.
Yeah, I love to paint. Working out, staying healthy. But yeah, I love painting and journaling. I love writing. I didn't realize, I've always loved writing, but I didn't realize how much I loved it till I really started diving into writing. I put out a weekly thought leadership blog now, and sometimes it has to do with life. Sometimes it has to do with my musings. Sometimes it has to do with my parenting. I became a single parent at 13 years ago, and raising 2 daughters was like one of the most challenging and rewarding aspects I've ever experienced. But yeah, I love doing just sort of creative activities.
Cool. What's one thing that you do to unwind after a long day?
Am I allowed to say it on the air? Working out, getting outside and riding. I love to mountain bike. I love to be in the gym. I love to read and just sit down. I love fire. So I always have a fire going at my house, whether it's
All right.
inside a fire, outside a fire. And spending time with my family. Like I truly enjoy the people that I'm surrounded with. I like being I like being a family man. I like being a father. I like being a romantic partner, and surrounding myself with cool people really fills me
Very
up.
cool. One thing that a brand should stop doing right now.
Stop being closed off to the idea that someone else might have a different perspective of what you're offering to them, and better understand how they see you, so that you can show up in the way that engages with them the most intimately.
Cool. What's your favorite quote about storytelling or branding?
Probably the one I said earlier by
that's what I was
Ansel
thinking.
Adams, "A picture tells 1,000 words." It's just
okay.
like, and everybody has a different interpretation. I'd like to add that in every single viewing of that picture, there's a different interpretation. And it's just like, that's the whole point. There's 1,000 words, but those 1,000 words are different to you than they are to me. So that's why I love photography so much, is because it allows people to have an interpretive value of something that means something indifferent to each one of us.
Cool. So I started doing this from my last podcast, so at the end of all questions. So we're almost towards the end. So,
That's unfortunate. This has been fun.
So you've been coming to Business Club, and what are things that we're doing right? I'd like you to answer that first, and then the next question is obviously, what are the things that we're not doing so right? We could do better.
What you're doing right is the format. I love the format.
Okay.
I love the fact that entrepreneurs can show up and engage in a non-obtrusive capacity and listen to other people share value or share value themselves. I love that whole idea of sort of like the Knights of the Round Table concept, if you will, right? I don't want to say what you're doing wrong, because that's interpretive. What could possibly be a little bit adjusted, if I would, is the communication to your team in terms of being more forthright about the value that you bring to the table. I don't know that everyone's clear, and it might have just become sort of, and I noticed this early in my mastermind, it sort of became an obligatory thing to show up for because I have it on my calendar. And I don't want anything ever to be obligatory. I want everything to be passionately I want to be passionately excited to attend, to do whatever it is. And so I think we could improve the communication, and I say we because I sort of love being a part of it. I think we could improve the communication. I think we could be a little bit more organized on the value of each session and sort of like a theme around it, which is something I want to talk to you about. I would actually like to. I would actually like to organize and run your lecture series.
Sure, absolutely. Would love to.
Yeah, so that people are very clearly communicated with on why they should show up today and what they're going to get out of it. You know, Sudev's going to speak today on XYZ. Rajav's going to speak about something else, and like Steve's going to be showing up and talk. And then and you can do this through your communication, through your messaging. You're like, why does that matter to me? What's in this for me? Because people don't really care about what's in it for me. Like what am I going to get out of this hour and a half that I spend with you, driving to Ballantyne's, sitting in a chair, listening to Deevo rattle on and on about brand messaging? Like, what's my takeaway from that? So I think we could improve the communication and the value add. Yeah,
the reason why I ask is obviously, we learned so many things from our guests. So I want to make sure that whatever we are doing is actually, helping the businesses better. And in 2025, we do have a grand plan from 2025 onwards. And then I would love for you to be part of that thing. So
I would be honored, man. For real. Thank you. I love everything that you're doing. I think, honestly, I've been part of so many different groups and masterminds and networking events. And I always sort of walk away with this like, this could have been so much better from like the beer-laden drunk fest at a hotel. It's like everyone gets their beer coupon. Like, come on, man. Like, I've been to so many of those events where people just made fools of themselves. So I was always like, there's got to be a better way. I actually launched a very similar concept to yours, but not as effective. And then I found yours, and I was like, screw that, I'm just going to do this. And so I love the concept, man. I think it's great. I think it's genius. And I'm glad that our paths have crossed.
Thank you. And such a pleasure having you, brother.
Appreciate it,
man. And you're such an energy, as I told you before, your energy is contagious. And I feel energized every time I talk to you.
Thank you.
And I would love to have many, many more such episodes with you. I know you are not just a brand storyteller. You're way beyond that. You know a lot about client acquisitions and a bunch of other things. So we'll dig into each of those topics. We are coming up with a series called Business Insights.
Oh, cool.
And we would love to know your perspective on those insights as well.
I would love to have been on it. This has been a cool conversation. And you have to come on my show.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you're already scheduled, right? I think I saw it in January or something.
Sometime, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, awesome.
Cool.
Thank
you so much.
Appreciate it, brother.
Great day. And
thank you.
Hey, guys. I hope you really liked the video. And if you did, Please like, subscribe, and comment. And we would like to reach many more small business owners. I would really appreciate if you can share the video with them as well. Thank you and see you until next time. Have a great one.